Okay. Good morning, everybody. Once again, in the last class, we started with the directing and controlling, either directing or direction. Directing is one of the management functions where, as the name suggests, the direction is given to execute. It's an action items. So actions or executions are taken through this directing phase, where all the objectives and goals are implemented. So you see the results using the directing control function. And in the directing, we looked what are the nature and what is the importance. And today we'll see giving orders. Okay, giving order, how the direction is done through the orders. So orders is nothing but a set of instructions. Either it can be like written or it can be verbal. In any form, the order is given basically to direct, so that the necessary actions are taken or necessary executions are taken, so that we can see the objectives being met. Okay. The order is a device employed by a line manager in directing his immediate subordinate to start an activity, stop it, or modify it. Okay. So orders are given so that certain activity can be started or stopped, or it can be modified. A staff executive does not issue orders. Only the managers they issue the orders to their employees. To some men, the matter of giving orders and having them obeyed seems very simple affair, but the fact is that is surrounded by many difficulties. The minute you say like a order, it is very complicated. How the manager will get it executed, it depends on his team members, how they react to the orders, or how order can be without mentioning the order, how work can be done through your team. That is a most complex thing that manager has to take care. Mary Parker followed lays down the following principles which should be followed in giving orders. So there are certain guidelines that is given by the one of the management practitioner. The attitude necessary for carrying out of an order should be prepared in advance. Okay, so whenever you are giving an order, proper preparation has to be taken care before giving the order. People will obey an order only if it appeals to their habit patterns. Therefore, before giving an order, it should be considered how to form the habits which will ensure their execution. So a proper planning is required, and it should make sure that it goes with the habit of the people, so that the execution will be very easy. And orders can be given remotely, or it can be given face to face, but face to face is most preferable way of giving order, where people will feel connected, and they will be very willing to execute. If it is a long distance, then the orders, the way it is given, might the intention might be like it is very difficult to convey the intention over the long distance rather than face to face. And order should be depersonalized and made an integral part of a given situation, so that question someone giving to someone receiving does not come up. So it should be depersonalized, means it should not involve the personalization. It is nothing. Order should not relate to any person. It should be just related to the situation, what kind of a work to be done. Only it should be restricted to that. Thus, the task of the manager is to make the subordinate perceive the need of the hour, so that the situation communicates its own message to them. So, it is manager's job to create such a situation where the situation will communicate the message to them regarding the what kind of the work is expected. So another management practitioner, Chester Bernard, lays down four conditions which make an order acceptable. Okay, according to him, order should be clear and complete. So order, there should not be any ambiguity, and it should be complete. So the order, once it is given, the object will some objective will be met, or some goals will be met. So the order given should be very clear, and it should be complete. Okay, there should not be any ambiguity, or there should not be any missing part. Order should be compatible with the purpose of the organization. So this is the most important thing. Order must be compatible with the what the purpose the organization is having, because all objectives and goals, they go in line with the what is there set by the organization. Order should be compatible with the employee's personal interest. So this is according to Bernard. Order should be compatible with employee's personal interest. This is a difficult thing, but most of the time, if it is possible to mold in such a way that the order it goes in the personal interest, that would be that will be helpful. Order should be operationally feasible. So we have to make sure that whichever the order has been given, it is feasible, means it is possible to do that. So feasibility should be checked before giving the order. Giving orders may be communicated. Okay, so there are different forms for communicating the orders. Either it is in the written form, in the verbal form. So verbal form can be like face to face or long distance communication can be through any different channels. The written communication through email, through a written letter, those are the different ways. Okay. Written orders are appropriate when the subject is important, many details are involved. Okay. There is geographical distance between the order giver and the recipient. So it talks about when we should use the written form of the order, when the subject is very, very important and there are a lot of details involved. And let us say the order you are giving to a person who is geographically at a different place, then it would be very, very important to follow the written orders. Manager may follow four types of method to ensure compliance to his orders. Okay, how he will make sure that order is getting executed by his team. He can use like a couple of methods. One is force. Okay, order is given and it has to be done forcibly, like he will force the people to get the work done. That is one way of doing it. Second one is a paternalism. So you will act like a paternal or like a father figure, and you will make sure that the work is getting done. And the third option is a bargain. So it's like a bargain is like a give and take. So you will the team will execute your orders in return for something. So it is a mutual give and take kind of a relation. And second one is harmony of objectives. Harmony of objectives is where everybody understand what the work is and what objectives we are meeting, and in with respect to that objectives, everybody will work. So whatever the order will come, with in harmony with the objectives, to meet those objectives, the work will be done. That is the fourth. Next one is a motivation. So motivation, motivation is motivated, their productivity is very high. So they will produce lot of things. They will come up with the innovative idea only if they are motivated. So motivation is it is a continuous aspect. It is not a one, like let us say on one day you will motivate the team, and team will be motivated all the time. So today morning I gave some insights on like to focus on your preparation for the aptitude and things like that. So I will be keep on telling that, right? So it is a constant thing. Sometimes you will forget, right? The team is also like that. You cannot expect the team to be in high spirits all the time. It is the responsibility of the manager to make sure that the team is motivated. Okay. So what is the meaning of motivation? Technically the term motivation can be traced to the Latin word movere, which means to move. So that is the meaning of the word. This meaning is evident when we remember that the manager gets work done through others. Okay. When you are getting work done through others, definitely in order for that work to be done, okay, one way is the force that may not work all the time. The other way is motivating. If you keep them motivating, and definitely the work will get done. If there is any one key to getting work done through others, it is the ability to move other people in the right direction day after day. So see, day after day means it is continuous. It is not only for one day. It is like a continuous process. Motivation, therefore, uh, uh, di- uh, concerns those dynamic processes which produce goal-directed behavior. Okay, so it will bring a goal-directed behavior. Okay, so motivation is a dynamic process which will make the whole team goal directed. Okay, their behavior will be goal directed, so they will achieve the goals. This process always begins with the individual feeling certain needs, also referred to as drives or the motives. So, how the motivation begins? The motivation begins with a feeling of certain needs. So, whenever there are certain needs, or it is also called as a motives or the drives, that will lead to the motivation. The example is like you want something, right? Let us say you are working in the organization, and you are maybe you are looking for the job security, that was your need, or you are looking for a good technology, that's your need, or you are looking for a promotion, that is your need. So the need will lead to the motivation. So if manager can identify what is the need of his team, he can motivate those people in that direction and he can get the work done. These needs give an energizing thrust to the individual towards certain goals or incentive which he pursues rightly or wrongly as a possible satisfier of his needs. So example is like you are looking for a technology. So your need is working on certain technology. So if manager identifies and if there is a possibility of using that technology, if that is given to you, so that will give you an energizing thrust, means that will give you a lot of energy, and you will work toward that achieving certain goals. So whatever the needs are there, they can become as a incentive, and with that incentive the team will start working towards the goals. Thus, one may perceive food, water, and friends as the possible satisfier of his hunger, thirst, and affiliation needs, and may be motivated to achieve these goals. So, if you are hunger, right? If you are hungry, the food is the satisfier. Similarly, if you are thirsty, water is the satisfier. If you are affiliation, you have the need of the affiliation, then friends, close relative, those are the satisfiers. Okay, so this is the how the motivation path is. So you can see here, first is the motives. There are like needs. If you don't have any motives, or if you don't have any kind of a needs, it is definitely not possible to motivate that person. If there are needs, when you need something, then only you can be motivated towards achieving the goals. Then the once first is the basic is the needs, the need of the individuals, interpretation of goals or incentives according to one's perception. So interpretation of the goals or incentives according to one's perception, whatever is according to his need, so you will interpret the goals and incentives, then goal directed behavior. Then you will, so for example, we took the example of a technology. So you will give the understand, first you will understand what is the incentive of having that. Then you have a goal directed behavior. Whatever the technology, whatever the, let us say you want to build the process, you can use this particular technology to build that process. That process is the goal. So you will create a goal directed behavior, accomplishment of the goals and need reduction. So a person will with that technology he will create that process. So the goal is achieved, and also need will reduce. So in this particular example what I gave, you may not see a reduction in the need. Let us say a need is a person is hungry. Okay. When you understand, when you provide the food, so goal is accomplished. The need for the food, so the food may not become the a motivator here. So once you accomplish, let us say you start working on that technology for like 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, that technology may not be the a motivator going ahead. Some other technology or something else will be motivating you. So that is how the motivation process is. Nature of motivation. Motivation is not an easily observed phenomena. So as I gave the example, it is not that easy to understand what the need of the individual, how to identify them, how to analyze them. It is not it's not that very easy process. We observe an individual's actions and then interpret his observed behavior in terms of underlying motivation. So we in the sense, the manager will observe the actions, okay, and try to interpret his behavior, why certain person is doing like that, and maybe try to get what is the underlying motivation that is required. This sometimes leaves a wide margin of error. Our interpretation does not necessarily reveal the individual's true motivation. So this is like there is a great margin of error here, because what you interpret, it depends on your personality. What you perceive is individual's motivation could be totally incorrect. So it is depends on how you perceive the things. So, there are certain following points that reveal the complexities involved in understanding the true motivation. So, these are the different things that will help us with understanding the nature of the motivation. So, first thing we have to understand is every individual, they differ in their motivations. What motivates me may not motivate the other. So if you consider your class, there are, for everybody there is a different motivators. So how you will get motivated, there are different aspects, so it will differ from individual to individual. And sometimes individual himself is unaware of the his motive. Sometimes what happens is, like, what motivates him, that itself the individual may not know or be aware completely. So that is another challenge. And motives change, as I told you. One example, your motivation is the technology. You work in that technology for 2 3 years, and that technology may not be your motivator. So the motives will keep on changing according to the time and situation. And motives are expressed differently. So how the motives are expressed, there are hundreds of ways in his behavior, in his talk, in his act. So there are different ways to understand that. So motives are very complex. So people, what they want, what motivates, they may not understand. So it's a very complex area. Multiple motives make the choice of goals difficult for an individual. Suppose if there are multiple options of having a uh, to achieve a certain goal, those multiple choice of the motives itself make a person to difficult to understand which one to be considered and which one not to be considered. So this multiple motives, this results in the following three types of motivational conflicts, which make the person's choice of goals difficult. So there are certain situations where person's choice will become difficult because there are multiple motives. Approach conflict. So there are like approach conflict is like let us say there are two options given for a person. Like for example, like a person is like he will be having a salary hike. Suppose if he continues with the current job, and the second option is if he moves to a different city, he will be promoted. So there are two motives are there, but which one to choose is very difficult. Maybe the reason for him being local is the highest priority for him. So that time, even though it motivates, because the transfer he has to go to a different city, even though there is a transfer, but there is a change of a city, that may not motivate him. So that is the conflict. Second one is avoidance and avoidance conflict. So here the two choices are there, and the both the choices are equally not acceptable for him. So that is called as a avoidance conflict. Then second one is the approach avoidance conflict. So he has an option, but if he take the option, the desired results is not acceptable to him. So that is the approach avoidance conflict. So there are certain determinants of the motivation. So what determines the motivation? There are certain determinants that are identified. In the past, only money was regarded as the like a major source of motivation. Nothing else. They did not consider the human behavior. Only the money is the if you offer more money, then definitely people will get motivated and they will work. That is like a traditional thinking. Nowadays in industry, there is a great concern with the multi motivational determinants of behavior. So now industry understands apart from money, there are many other motivational determinants that can decide how the behavior of the people will be. First one is the individual. To understand what motivates employees, so individuals, the individual himself, what will motivate him? Okay, whether the money will motivate him, whether the technology will motivate him, promotion will motivate him. Okay, so that kind of a individual related motives we have to find out. Then organizational climate. What is the organization climate or the environment? uh, the the place he is working, how that the environment, it plays a very important role in as a motivator. Now next one is the job characteristic. The job characteristic itself will be an motivator. How the job is there, what are the different tasks, what are the things he is doing, how the things are there. So the whole job characteristics itself becomes a motivational thing. For example, marketing. So marketing, a person who enjoys work traveling around, talking to the people, so that job itself is a motivator for him. He will be traveling to many people, he talking to many people. So that is the one example of a job characteristic. Then exogenous variables. The life is not divided into two compartments, but they are closely bound. So the thinking is that two compartment is what? One is the work environment, and another compartment is outside the work environment. Even though we think that these are two different entities, but it is not like that. They are interrelated. There is a close bound. What he is experiencing in his personal life, definitely it will have a impact on how the work is being done by that particular person. And depending upon what kind of a environment he is in his organization, his personal life will have that impact. So there are many motivational theories are there. Okay, they basically explain the behavior outcome relationship, and they are classified into broad categories. One is called content theories, process theories, and reinforcement theory. In case of a content theory, it tells what motivates an individual. So what are the things that will motivate, and they throw light on the various needs and incentives which cause the behavior. That is content theory. Second one, the process theory. This will answer the question how behavior is caused. means a certain person has a certain kind of a behavior, how it is caused. The process theory will explain that. Reinforcement theory explains the ways in which behavior is learned, shaped, or modified. So reinforcement will explain what are the different ways where behavior can be learned or shaped or it can be modified. Some of the motivational theories, content theories. Maslow's need theory. Okay. Need hierarchy theory. Maslow's need hierarchy theory is very, very beautiful when it started with that idea. Most of the time it will explains. Again, it has pro merits and demerits. So we'll look into Maslow's need hierarchy theory. Then Alderfer's ERG theory is there. Then Hertzberg's two-factor theory, and McClelland achievement theory is there. Okay, these come under the content theories. And in the process theories, Victor Room expectancy theory, Adams equity theory, and in the reinforcement theory, we have Skinner's behavior modification theory. So in particular, your syllabus doesn't talk about which theories to be considered. It just says the motivational theories. The most important theories we are going to cover. So first we are going to see the Maslow's need hierarchy theory, but you should have a little bit understanding of each of these theories. Maslow's need hierarchy theory, all people have a variety of needs. So first thing is, this theory considers every person has a different need. And at any given time, some of these needs are satisfied and others are not satisfied. So some can be satisfied, some cannot be satisfied. And unsatisfied need is starting point in the motivation process. So if there are certain needs that are not satisfied, that is the beginning of the motivation, because you are not satisfied with certain thing. So that can be a need, that is your need, and you can be that particular behavior can be controlled using that particular need as a motivator. It begins the chain of events leading to a behavior. When a person has unsatisfied need, he or she attempts to identify something that will satisfy the need. This is called as a goal. So when person is not satisfied, he will try some means to satisfy that need. Okay. So that is the way you can motivate that particular person. And that is called as goal. So when you are trying to satisfy your node, so you have set a goal. Once the goal has been identified, the person takes action to reach that goal. So once you understand, okay, let us say I want to be a good communicator. So you identify that, okay, and you start working on the communication, okay, written communication, verbal communication, and that one will become your goal. So until and unless you achieve that goal, you will be working on that particular thing, okay. And according to Maslow, needs are arranged in a hierarchy or a ladder of 5 successive categories. So Maslow has proposed like 5 categories, and they are arranged in a hierarchy. They are in a hierarchy. We will see that. Okay. First one is a basic need or basic physiological needs. Then comes the safety, security need, social need, esteem, and self-realization. Basic physiological needs, basic physiological, whatever the physiological needs we have, we get hungry, we get thirsty, okay, whatever the basic things that is required, those are called as a physiological needs or our basic needs. Once a person is happy with his food, his shelter, and all those things, he goes into the next level of the need. So this is the higher level needs. So according to this theory, everybody starts with these needs. Once these needs are fulfilled, this will not become the motivator. He goes to the safety, security. Safety, security is what? Security of his family, security of his loved ones, security of his job. Okay, all those is the next level. Safety and security. Social needs, what are the social needs? Having family, having friends, having his own working room, those are the examples of the social needs. So he will, once he crosses the safety and security, then arises the social needs. And once this is fulfilled, esteem. So esteem is like getting recognized. Okay, so you want to get recognized. Okay, one example is the self-esteem. Okay, and another one is the esteem by others. How self-esteem is how I perceive myself, and esteem of others is how others perceive that particular person. So he will have both the needs. One is self esteem, and how people should see him, that is the esteem from others. So that will be the next level of his need. And then next, the final is the self realization. Self realization is the highest level of his motivation, where he is using all his capability to the fullest extent. So when a person uses his capability to fullest extent, he will be performing at the highest level. So this is the order of priority of human needs. Characteristic of human needs. Okay, lower order needs and higher order needs. So lower order needs are like basic needs. Higher order needs are towards the self realization. Being related to the physiological of an individual, these are explicit, not hidden. It is therefore easy to understand these needs. So these are very physiological and very easy to understand. These are very finite. Okay, there is no limit on these needs. Once there are few basic needs are there, once they are fulfilled, it is done. It's a finite. These needs are universal, but vary in intensity from individual to individual. Excuse me. So these needs are universal, but only intensity. Some people will have higher need, or some people will have lower need. These needs are conditioned by social practice. Example, if it is a customary to eat breakfast in the morning, then the body comes to respond accordingly. So physiological need, if you are eating breakfast every day, the morning physiological need is to have a breakfast. So that is the one. Okay, these needs are primarily satisfied through economic behavior by earning more money. So these needs can be easily satisfied with the money. Then comes the higher order needs, being related to the mind and spirit of an individual. These needs are hidden, nebulous. It is therefore very difficult for others, even for the individual himself, to understand them. So higher level needs are, they are related to mind and the spirit of each and individual. Even sometimes what he needs he may not know. So they are very hidden inside, and these needs are infinite. So you cannot count on these needs, like what you want to achieve, what realization you want to have. So those are infinite. These needs are not universal and may even exist as a opposites in two persons. One person may find satisfaction in being aggressive, another is being submissive. So these are not universal, and in some people it might have a like a, as example given, some person feels satisfaction in being aggressive. Okay, for another it doesn't make him satisfied with that, so he would be more submissive. So that kind of a needs would be there. These needs are strongly conditioned by experience and maturity. So as you experience and maturity, these needs will change. These needs are primarily satisfied through symbolic behavior of the psychic and social content. So these are very symbolic behavior. Because it is related to the mind, so it is depends on lot of on the psychic as well as the social content. So according to Maslow, people attempt to satisfy the physical needs first. So first they will attempt to satisfy their physical needs. As long as the needs are unsatisfied, they dominate the behavior. So if those basic necessities are not satisfied, they dominate the behavior. Means they can control the behavior. As they become reasonably satisfied, however, they lose their motivational power, and the next level of needs, security needs, becomes the dominant motivational force. For somebody, getting a two times meal is a challenge. So that would be the motivational thing. Once he start getting consistently two meals every day, he is fine with that. He will move on to because those basic needs will not become the motivator. The next motivator would be the security needs. This process continues up the need hierarchy as level of needs become relatively satisfied. As you get satisfied from different levels, you move on to the next level. And what are the merits? Merits are the theory helps to explain why one man behaves differently from others. Okay, the theory extends to all the areas of person's life. So these are the merits of the system. The theory gives some insight into the history and future trends. So it will give some kind of a trend. What was his need historically, and how it can trend in the future. The theory points out a fact that a satisfied need is not a motivator of a behavior which is ignored by the conventional approaches. One important thing is a satisfied need will not become the motivator, which was like totally ignored by the conventional approaches. So if you have any unsatisfied need, that can become a motivator. Demerits: the hierarchy of basic needs is always not fixed. The order in which the need becomes stronger is not rigid. So the hierarchy, so it starts from basic needs to self-realization. This is not fixed. In some people, there will be their needs will totally be different. Some people, they don't care for the basic needs. They will directly go for the self-realization. So hierarchy is not fixed. So that is the demerit. It is difficult to know about the needs and motives of an individual from the analysis of the behavior. It's very true. By analyzing his behavior, to understand his needs is very, very difficult. Okay, and the biggest drawback of this theory is we cannot test this theory. We cannot put it in the testing and make sure that okay, this works fine. So that is the some of the demerits the system has. The next one is the Herzberg's two-factor theory. So, in case of Herzberg's two-factor theory, in case of Maslow's hierarchy needs, some it gives some insight into the people and their behavior, using that as the base. Now, Herzberg, what he did was he looked into more specifically work motivation. What is the work motivation? This is perhaps the most popular theory of work motivational is based on research started by Frederick Herzberg. So he did a research based on the motivation work. And in his original study, what he did, he took around 200 engineers and accountants, okay, and he interviewed them. And he asked them to think of times when they felt especially good and times when they felt especially bad about their jobs. So what Hertzberg did was he extended the Maslow's theory to understand what is the work motivation. So he started one study where he called upon he interviewed around 200 engineers and accountants, and he asked them when the time was good, okay, how they felt about it. When they felt the time was bad, how felt about that. So he wanted to record that. The engineers and accountants were then asked to describe the factors that led to these particular feelings. Okay, so whatever the feelings that had, what was the reason behind that? What is the factors which led to those feelings that he tried to understand? When talking about especially bad times, the engineers and accountants brought up things like unfair company policies, poor relationship with their boss and co-workers, and low pay. See, when they were talking especially about the bad times, okay, they were very clear. Okay, what was causing that? Maybe some kind of unfair company policy or poor relationship with their managers, relations with the co-workers, or the low payment, things like that. In contrast, when asked about the good job experiences, they generally did not mention these factors. So, when they were asked to talk about the good experiences, they didn't mention about all these things. Okay, they didn't say the policy is good, manager is good. Okay, instead of that, what they talked about, recognition they had received for a well done job, opportunity they got in their jobs, and personal growth and development. Hertzberg and others repeated these interviews with a variety of workers in different types of organization. So they try to understand in the good times what were the factors that caused the good time in their experiences, and the in the bad time, so what are the things that contributed. They tried to interview many people, and they also did with a different organization, and based on that he devised this two factor theory. Okay, so in the next class we will look into the details about what are the those two factors. If you have any questions, you can put it in the chat section.